is this brown scapular? Before we answer that, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell if you don't want to miss any of our videos. Okay, so if you were raised Catholic, there is a high probability that you might have seen at least one person wear a scapular. So what are scapulars and why do Catholics wear them? To answer this, let's first look at their origin in Catholicism. Scapulars come from the Latin word scapula, meaning shoulder blade. The oldest known reference can be found in the rule of Saint Benedict as scapulae propter opera, or the scapular because of works. This scapular was more like an apron and was a big piece of cloth as wide as your chest and would drape the front and back of the person. It was commonly used among medieval monks when they were working. After the 9th century, it was given to monks who made their profession of vows and was referred to as the yoke of Christ or shield of Christ. Scapulars became an important element of the habit worn by the religious. Only the color of the scapular differentiated members from different congregations or religious orders. For example, the Dominican order has the white scapular while the Trappist monks have a black scapular. As time went on, the laity began to show more interest in imitating the holy lives of the religious. They wanted to not only practice piety like the religious did, but wanted to wear clothing that would associate them with a particular religious order. Third order congregations or confraternities like the lay Dominicans, lay Benedictines, lay Carmelites began to develop a much more smaller version of a scapular, a narrow 24-inch cloth worn over the head and draping over the front and back of the person. The current scapular, which is considered a sacramental, consists of a woolen thread joining two postage stamp size blocks of engraved wood that hang over the neck so that one square of cloth hangs in the front and the other down the back. It can be worn over or under the clothing. While there are 18 church-approved small-size scapulars, the most common scapular is the brown scapular. The scapular of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, more commonly known as the brown scapular, is the most popular scapular among the laity. Now, Mount Carmel has been an important part of Christianity right from the Old Testament. The name Carmel comes from the Hebrew Carmel, meaning God's vineyard or garden. The mountain range found in the northern part of Israel is mentioned in books like Isaiah and Jeremiah, where the area flourishes due to God's blessing. Or in books like Nahum and Amos, where the land withers when God removes his blessings. It was also the place where David met his wife Abigail and where the prophet Elisha stayed before healing the Shunammite woman's son. However, the most famous account of Mount Carmel in the Old Testament is when Prophet Elijah defeats King Ahab and the 450 prophets of Baal by showing that the God of the Israelites is the one true God and had them all killed. Mount Carmel has been a pilgrimage site since the days of the early church. One such group of pilgrims began to stay at Mount Carmel to live like the prophet Elijah and built a small grotto there. While the history remains unclear, it is said that by 1150, a small monastery had been established and the hermits were eventually known as the Order of the Brothers of the Most Blessed Virgin Mary of Mount Carmel. There was a period of instability during the Crusades and many of the brothers fled to Europe. Tradition states that in 1254, Saint Louis, King of France, visited Carmel and took back 6 of the remaining friars with him to start a monastery near Paris. This marked the beginning of the order in Europe. Saint Simon Stock, one of the earliest priors of the order, is said to have contributed to the spread of the Carmelite order across Europe. So according to tradition, during Saint Simon's time, the Carmelite order was on the verge of extinction. Saint Simon had been praying to the Blessed Virgin Mary asking for protection over the order when on July 16, 1251, she appeared to him with a scapular saying, "Take, beloved son, this scapular of your order as a badge of my confraternity, and for you and all Carmelites a special sign of grace. Whoever dies in this garment will not suffer everlasting fire. It is a sign of salvation, a safeguard in dangers, a pledge of peace and of the covenant." Later, Our Lady of Mount Carmel appeared to Pope John XXII in a vision. She promised the Pope that whoever wears the brown scapular would have the Sabbatine privilege, that is, they would be released from purgatory on the first Saturday after their death. So while the scapular promise saves you from hell, the Sabbatine privilege saves you from an extended stay in purgatory. However, to be eligible for the scapular promise, you need to be enrolled in the brown scapular confraternity. This is usually done through an investiture ceremony by a priest, but there are certain conditions that members must must follow. In a papal bull, Pope Paul VI states the following conditions: wear the brown scapular continuously, observe chastity according to the one state in life, married or single, recite daily the little office of the Blessed Virgin, or observe the fast of the church together with abstaining from meat on Wednesdays and Saturdays, or with permission of a priest, say 5 decades of Our Lady's Most Holy Rosary, or with permission of a priest, substitute some other good work. So is the scapular considered just a get out of hell jail free card for Catholics? No, the scapular promise doesn't mean that you can live however you want and still expect to go to heaven. The church is clear that we must continue to strive to live in holiness and avoid all occasions of sin. It is just assumed that those who wear the scapular would be trying as much as possible to live holy lives. The scapulars serve as a reminder to this call to holiness. So do Catholics believe that Mary and not Jesus saves them if they wear the scapular? Again, no. The church is clear that salvation comes through Christ alone. So then, how can wearing the scapular help us go to heaven? St. John Paul II explained it like this: the scapular is essentially a habit which invokes the protection of the Blessed Virgin Mary in this life and in the passage to the fullness of eternal glory. The scapular also reminds us that the devotion of her must become a uniform, that is, a Christian lifestyle woven of prayer and interior life. Since the very beginning, the scapular has been one of the most popular devotions in the church. Several popes had a great devotion to the scapular. The scapular encourages us to live like Mary, keeping Christ alive in our hearts. Through her intercession and guidance, we grow closer to Christ. According to the Carmelites, true devotion to Mary consists in 3 things: veneration, confidence, and love. By simply wearing the scapular, we can tell her every moment of the day that we venerate her, love her, and trust in her protection. We follow her example of true discipleship and live out our call to holiness. It is a reminder to live a life of heroic virtue by following God's commandments, so that like Mary, we can be united with Christ in heaven. This is why we wear the brown scapular. As Catholics, we have been given tools like the scapular to strive for the perfection and holiness that Christ calls us to. Imagine if Catholics across the world sincerely practice this devotion. It would fulfill Saint Dominic's words: one day through the rosary and the scapular, Our Lady will save the world. So, what do you think about this? Do you wear this brown scapular? What other scapulars or Catholic devotions would you like to know about? Let us know in the comments below. Also, if you like this video, let us know by liking and subscribing to our channel. It helps us a lot. Until next time.